meeting of the Torrington City Council to order. This is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Good evening and welcome to all. Tonight we have with us Ryan Keith over there in the corner from KERM, KGOS Radio. So this council meeting is being broadcast live on the radio and also on YouTube. We also have Miss Amber Wolfington here from the Torrington Telegram. Welcome to the press. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Councilman Rick Warren to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda are the mayor's informational items. I won't cuss up here. I've heard the following about the Wyoming wind. It's either blowing like heck or getting ready to blow like heck. Given these windy days, we'd ask residents not to put larger limbs in the dumpster, as those limbs are very hard on our garbage trucks and hard on our baler. Please place any large limbs near but not into the dumpster. If you have large limbs on your street or in your alley impeding the street or alley and you need help with pickup and disposal, please contact Street Superintendent Ed Hawley at 532-6370. Again, that's Streets Superintendent Ed Hawley at 532-6370. On a more serious note, well, that was serious too. Mental health issues in Wyoming, in Goshen County, and in Torrington are substantial. The challenges of contending with mental health issues are very real. You know this if you yourself are dealing with mental health issues, or if you have family, friends, or coworkers who suffer. You know this if you work in law enforcement, the court system, the school system, and certainly if you work in the counseling and medical systems. We all need to make ourselves more aware of mental health issues and where help can be obtained. We all need to work to lessen the stigma that is often associated with those who suffer from mental health issues. Mental health issues are very real, very serious, and often deadly. Wyoming's suicide rate is historically higher than the United States suicide rate. The suicide rate is highest among 20 to 24-year-olds, but certainly no age group or economic or social class is immune. In the Friday, February 28, 2025 edition of the Torrington Telegram, there is a front page article by Jess Oakes entitled Statewide Mental Health Text Support. I recommend your reading of the article. It outlines the problem of mental health issues in Wyoming and outlines the new program called the Wyoming Text Line Program that can help those in need. This program provides free text-based mental health support. This free mental health support can be accessed by texting WIO, then the word to, T-O, 741-741. I'll repeat that. Text WIO, and then the word to, T-O, and then 741-741. It can also be accessed through www.cathedralhome.org/741. Again, that website is www.cathedralhome.org/741. The Telegram article on the front page of the February 28, 25 edition is well worth the reading. We all mourn the passing of Art Thompson, a Torrington and Goshen County fixture for decades. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family, friends, and all who knew him. Art Thompson and his partner, Lee Phillips, owned and operated our local bowling alley, which opened in 1964. Ten Pin Tropics was owned and operated by them for 4 decades. Art Thompson, along with Gene Koza, brought Little League Baseball to Torrington in 1965. and were instrumental in making Torrington a true baseball town. Art Thompson, you will be missed. May our thoughts and prayers be with your family, friends, and all those whose lives were impacted for good by you. We will miss you, Art Thompson. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the February 18th, 25 council meeting as published.
Move to approve the agenda. Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right,
I'll get it.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda as set forth and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda itself.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion from Councilman Victorin to approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Kelly. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is what we refer to as the public forum. There are no takers this evening, but I do like to explain this. This is for non-agenda items. There is a time limit of 2 minutes, and the speaker must sign up before the meeting. This is a time for a council to listen. No action will be taken. But if you want to sign up, there are sign-up sheets, and they need to be placed in that black container in front of Councilman Warren. All right, we are heading into the action items. The first item on the action item agenda is item number 1, Homesteaders Museum Construction Project Construction Manager at Risk, CMAR, bid presentation. And I call on,
Evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to start,
okay, all right,
give you a little background information before we get Sarah, and then we'll finish up with Ken.
all right, thanks, Mark.
Back in May of last year, we entered into agreement with Goshen County Construction to act as our construction manager at risk to build a museum project. That was a pre-bid agreement. What we're asking for tonight is to do addendum to now do the construction. He's done all of his work. He's hired all of his engineers, architects, and he's went about and got all the bids. So what we're asking for is your approval to move forward with the addendum so that we can proceed with the Kelly building down at the museum. I'll let Sarah have just a minute with you, and then we'll get Ken up.
All right, thanks, Mark. Good evening, Sarah.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Just to give you a quick recap of how this project came to be, James Kelly from Casper, Wyoming reached out to the museum about 9 years ago, looking to donate a pretty large sum of money as well as his artifacts, his collection, and family memorabilia to our museum. So this has been in the works for quite some time. He passed away probably 6 years ago and left that money to the museum with the intent that it be used for this building. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and if not,
I have
Barrier
just
can
a
give.
couple. His intent was that for these monies his trust monies to be used for a building, right?
correct, yes,
And the city is using it for a building.
yes,
So we're in compliance with the terms of the trust and so on. Okay.
yes.
Just wanted to verify that. Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Ms. Chairs?
Yes, Sarah, what makes up his collection?
Family memorabilia, so pictures, family documents, quite a bit of furniture, and his things that he collected throughout his life that he wanted to leave to the museum. His family was originally from Torrington, is why he chose this area.
And that will be housed in this building?
It will. It probably won't all be on display permanently, but we will have a section dedicated to him, absolutely.
So when this building gets built, the city of Torrington will be responsible for its upkeep and everything else?
Yes.
With no maintenance provision in this?
No. There will be hopefully a little bit of money left over to go towards that, but
And are you done?
Mr. Mayor, there will be room, Sarah, in the building for other parts of the collection from homesteaders too?
Yes, so the goal of the building, the way that we have it laid out right now, there will be exhibit space, there will be an archival and research area, which we're currently lacking in one of our main functions, and then another artifact space as well.
And I think council knows this, but I want to reiterate. This project is zero, other than maybe future maintenance of some sort, it's zero cost to the city, right?
Correct.
Okay, because this is all done with those private funds that came through the trust.
It is.
And the building and the property and everything will be deeded to the city, correct?
Yes, the city will own the building, and it's just going right north of the existing depot building on our lot there.
All right.
Okay.
No further questions for Ms. Chairs. I'll let her sit down. Mr. Ferrier here.
If you would like to see more in-depth drawings, I have them.
Good evening, Mr.
Mayor and
Ferrier.
council, yes. We apologize getting this to you late, but it was a crunch to try to get this approved with costs increase daily, weekly. So we're already been a little bit threatened with some cost increase, so we're just trying to get it done before something changes. So that's not the complete drawings, but it's an overview of what we have there. The last pages are just what we used for the bidding process to get to where we're at. If you looked at the second to the last page, you will see a number in there of about $1,040,000. That's what we initially came in after bidding. And we don't have that in the budget. So the selected contractors that are on that list, we all worked pretty hard to cut costs with, savings and minor changes to get it down to the last number that's on the last page. So that's where we're at with the total cost. This is a fully engineered project. The pre-construction phase that you contracted before included architectural, engineering, getting it through the state, all the plan review fees and everything, and getting it through the bidding process to meet state statutes. So that's all been done. So we're at this point here now. We're done. We value engineered it down to that last number there, and that's final.
And Ken, this is a sort of a specialized, state of Wyoming uses this system for a lot of their building projects.
The construction manager at risk, yes. The state uses it so they can basically, the university, UW, uses it a lot too. And they use it so that they can select somebody that they know they can work with on a project similar to this, as you can see. Although this is small for construction manager at risk, you can see just by the front page, it's a little difficult, a little challenging there. And then trying to meet a specific budget, which we struggled with initially, there's a lot of back and forth to get to it. So rather than going back out for bid, we value engineer it to the point where we can afford it.
Okay. And those entities that you're working with on that second to last page, the best of my knowledge, those look like all local contracts.
Most of them are, yes. As much as we can, and we perform some of the work ourselves, Goshen County Construction will. So, like I say, we have met the state requirements by advertising it for bid. So, you know, it still goes out fair, you know, so that's how we get that part done. And since you'll notice there's some numbers under my name in there, state requirements requires me to turn my bid in the day before. So there isn't any collusion or anything, you know, so my price is turned in the day before bid opening. So somebody could compete against me if they wanted.
You know, when you were here last before us on the first phase of this, it seemed like you're a longtime contractor with a good reputation. You kind of like this manager at risk system.
Well, the thing of it is, and you can see on the first page of the continuation sheet, now, not all the totals are there. This process for the owner is very transparent. You know exactly what you're getting, and you know how you got there. The bids were opened publicly right here in the city, so there's nothing hidden. Fees and everything, how we got to it, it's right there. It gives the owner the opportunity to choose, you know, through a selection process, to choose somebody that might best suit their needs. And for us, as a contractor, I have no problem with showing you how we got there. Basically, we're just telling you, this is how much we're working for. Want to hire us or not? And that was decided initially on the first part of the contract in the pre-construction phase. So we had a fee in there, and then we also had indicated in there what we would work for, the percentage we would work for if we choose to do the rest of the building. And that was value engineered also. I guess I'll go ahead and say my initial fee was do it for 10%, and since we did not have the money to get this done, I reduced my fee down to 7, you know, so everybody has to cut some to get this in budget.
And it sounds like you were all able to work together and get from the 1,401,000,000
Yeah,
46,709 down to the 926,805.
that almost everybody participated in that. The others that their number didn't change was because there was nothing for them to really change. They was bidding the bare minimum anyhow. So they didn't have anything that they could say, well, if we did this or if we changed this, we could do this or this, you know. So there was a few that are left the same, you know. They were smaller items anyhow, somebody that might have had a bid for 19 or 20,000. How much are we going to get out of them anyhow? You know, there's not a lot of room there.
When the price came down, it's not a situation where the one room is partially finished and you finish it later or something, anything like that?
No, it will be completely finished. We did things such as, you got to be careful because you still need to complete the project. So one thing that amounted to like $9,000 was to change the brand name of the furnaces. You know, the engineer had very high-end furnaces in there, very fancy computer-controlled things. Well, do we need that, or do we need to just heat and cool the building? So see, you know, an HVAC contractor can point that stuff out. Well, if you'll allow me to change this, we'll do this. So we have to be careful when we, you know, value engineer something, so we don't want to strip it down to nothing. You know, it's still got to be nice,
Yeah.
you know. And, you know, we removed a little concrete walk that didn't need to be there, you know. So there's potentially stuff that Sarah could add on later, but we're leaving them with everything that's needed. Yeah, so that's kind of the thing. You have to, you still have to leave a good product there. Nothing unfinished. Yeah.
Kenny, this is if I can read that, it's about a 60 by 35 two-story building,
Yes.
steel building.
Yes, it's pre-engineered metal building, and if you look at the second page, you'll see a floor plan there, and the one that's to your left, that's the lower area. And you'll see that there's restroom in there, and then stairs going up, and there's the first room off the big display area is kind of an archive research area that you could, there's a desk and whatnot there to look at things. And then upstairs, there's an office, and that big area on the side there, that's a storage area. One of the things that we value engineered was, you'll see that there's a small elevator in there. Well, we reduced the cost of that elevator. The best price one that I could find that would carry a person also was $42,000. So we needed to do something different there, because what Sarah's request really is to be able to move files or something without having to carry them up and down the stairs. So we went down to a cargo lift instead, which is not for a person to ride, and it's not public accessible upstairs either. So it's just for her and her staff to use. So we have a cargo lift, that's all it's to be used for, which actually we reduced the cost by more than half. So you just got to find these.
So you put the cargo in, push up, and then run up the stairs.
Yeah, go up and get it. You don't have to carry it up then, We're hoping that Sarah can walk up and down the stairs for a few more years.
So the ADA factor doesn't come into this anywhere? 'Cause it's
No, because the upstairs is not designed to be ADA accessible. There's nothing up there for the public to look at. And even if there was, the state is maintaining that if we supply everything downstairs, the same thing downstairs that's upstairs, we don't have to make it accessible upstairs, because everything that's in the building, a handicap accessible person would be able to see downstairs. But the upstairs is not intended for that anyhow.
Does this type or size of building does the state require a fire suppression system?
No. No. There's very little requirements in a building like this, and then for the mere fact that it starts with a metal building anyhow, they look at the fact, what's going to burn? Some interior contents, but you're not going to lose the structure. So I think you can see they're not in red, but you can see lots of details on the front page where there's lots of notes and things, really fine prints. That's all the stuff that comes back from the state. So it's been through the state and been approved by the state. We have a permit to construct. Based on the state, they say you can go.
Mayor, I guess I have one more question, and perhaps it would be for Sarah, but this
Yeah.
figure, Ken, at the end, gets us a building.
Yes.
This figure doesn't get anything else in terms of interior for a museum. I guess my question is, in this figure, is there going to be included display furniture?
No, there's no furnishings.
Furnishings.
I mean, the rooms and things that you're seeing are finished. The building is finished.
Ready for a
But
museum?
I don't know where I'd get a T-Rex or anything to be able to supply, you know what I mean? So Sarah's going to be on their own on that.
Okay.
And we'd like to ask one thing too. If you'll notice on the bottom of the first page of the continuation sheet here, this one, it says insurance and bonds. And on the continuation sheet, you see that? It's $10,854. On a normal project with Public Works money, that would be a requirement to have that performance and payment bond. I'm speaking for them, we're requesting that this be waived in this case by the council because of, if I'm going to say it right, the nature of where the money came from. Technically, are we considering it public money that the state would require that, or not? Due to the fact of maybe where the money came from, we'd like to waive the performance and payment bond. We could take that out of there, then that would come out of that 926. And the reason for, it gives Sarah a little bit more money for later on to buy the furnishings, to do something different that she wanted outside. She would like to maybe add some more of that wrought iron fence at some point, you know. So it would be some extra spending cash. I guess if you guys, in a sense, trusted me that I would get the job done, you know, maybe. So that's kind of up to you guys. It's something we just wanted to mention, that maybe we wouldn't ask for it on a public works project, really.
You
know.
couldn't on a public.
No.
In this particular situation, we do have, the contract says we have the ability to waive that performance bond. So, but obviously we cannot do that. That's up to council. So that's the other thing that we're asking with going into the addendum with Ken, is to waive the performance bond. We know Ken, I've told him to stay off any ladders so he don't get hurt during this project. I think it's in the best interest for the museum and for Sarah. But I'll let you make that decision.
You know, money.
We want your input, so your opinion is that it is in the best interest to go ahead and waive that.
Yeah, and like I said, typically, like I said, a normal bid project has a performance and payment bond. If we waive this performance bond, the performance bond would typically be used for, if the contractor fails to do their job, we have the money to we go to their performance bond and finish the project. We've got a good contractor, a reputable contractor, somebody we're familiar with, and as long as Ken does not get hurt over the next 12 months, then I've told him to be careful, then we'll be just fine. But we know who else is going to finish up the project if for some reason Ken is in bed for a couple days.
It's just that gives Sarah more spending money later down the road for the T-Rex skeleton, you know. So I guess what we're asking here is that, you know, the last fee there, on there, that would be the total cost of the project, that we would do the attachment to the original contract, and that would be the total.
So just so I'm clear, Kenny, so it'd be the 926,805 less the 10,854.
If you choose to
If we choose.
waive that, we will take that off. So yes, that would be less that. And there's two parts to the contract, because the pre-construction phase was the initial contract, and then to complete the building is an attachment on it. So the pre-construction phase, which was $40-some thousand to get through all the engineering, to get to where we're at today, to be able to hand you some drawings and say, this is the price for that. That fee is included in there because it has to come out of the total cost of the project.
Okay. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And the total gift was,
Do you know, Sarah, the total amount of the gift?
It's like $1 million. I think.
$38,975 is the
I'm
balance.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Right now, we have those set aside in the accounts, in the Kelly Trust accounts, and the balance in those accounts is $938,975. And it's also on my financial report, if you want to look.
We worked to give you a little bit extra elbow room there, not to spend it all up, but I think we'd like to take that 10 and add to that, that extra, so there's a little bit more for maybe maintenance or her to purchase something else or something, It's nothing to do with us contractors. We've set our fee. That bonding fee would be something that I would have to purchase, but I just wouldn't get it. We'll reduce the cost by that. That's why I left it on this sheet here.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, my question would be for Mr. Eddington. Is that a violation of any statute?
Not that we're aware of, because of the contract terminology, and these are private funds gifted, if you will, to the city of Torrington. So it's just a risk analysis, and when Mark came to me about this option, I said that was certainly a council decision.
So, Mr. Mayor, we've already approved Mr. Ferrier and Goshen County Construction as the CMAR. This is, this is considered an addendum to the original contract? Looking for clarification.
The
This is what
AIA.
We're calling this
Yeah.
tonight, is this an addendum?
The AIA documents that we have already signed for the pre-construction phase, that fee is in there, and then there's a space in there, and there's an attachment that we will attach. And we had seen it at some point, Jim, remember the attachment? That we make an attachment that finishes up to get us to this total. So we're already contracted. We're just need to have the attachment that makes it to this number to finish it up.
So we're approving the attachment.
And before I entertain a motion, I
Right.
want to know the right wording. Is that what
That's
you're
what I'm
getting at? I know you
I'm
are.
looking for. I don't want a next meeting to say Shane was wrong.
Jim, it was an attachment or an exhibit?
I think it's either one, and that is semantical. It's an exhibit, it's the total scope of services, and you're attaching that 900 number as the amount contracted for.
Okay.
Which the attachment would indicate project cost not to exceed. And then that number would be put in there.
So do we need a formal attachment to vote on?
What you're looking at for work,
This will be,
because it has the amount that you're approving. Basically approving it to be built for that amount.
but we'd have to take the 10,854 off of
If you choose to
900
If we
something
chose to do that.
and do
yeah.
that
do
figure.
that, yes.
Did we make separate motions on that?
It'd be best to do it separately.
Yes, Are you ready for a motion then, Mr. Mayor?
I'm ready for a motion on the main issue, and then we can address whether or not we're going to waive the performance bond requirement. I think makes sense.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the attachment to the original contract for the CMAR for the Homesteader Museum.
All right, I'll see if I can repeat that. I have a motion from Councilman Deal in item number 1 to approve the attachment to the Homesteaders Museum Construction Project Manager at Risk contract. Do I have a second?
Do you want to include the price in the amount of?
Yes, can somebody calculate? Hell, no, it's
It
the
would
whole
just be-
That has
price.
to be a
Would just be
separate
the
thing.
original.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Yeah.
All that I just said at the price of 1 million,
No,
No,
I'm sorry,
at the
900.
price of $926,805.
I know. All right, I misspoke. At the price of $926,805 $805. So I have a motion, right?
Yes.
Now I would entertain a second.
Second.
I have a second. Okay. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the attachment to the Homesteader Museum Construction Project, Manager at Risk, item set forth in item number 1, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that's approved. It's the hardest motion I've ever entertained, language-wise. All right. Now, the next issue is whether or not council is willing to waive the performance bond requirement on that project in the amount of $10,854.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to waive the performance bond.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Victron to waive the performance bond on this project, in item number 1. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Warren. All right, any further discussion?
Do we need to put the dollar amount in?
I think,
Certainly could.
I thought we did.
I didn't voice it, but that would be my intent.
All right. So I have a motion to waive the performance bond in the amount of $10,854 from Councilman Victron, and I can't remember who seconded it.
Councilman.
Warren.
Second from Councilman Warren. Okay, that's the motion stated. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of waiving the performance bond on the project in the amount of $10,854 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. All right, the performance bond is waived. All right, Mr. Eddington, anybody else? We're good on this? We're done?
I just have one question yet. There's no time frame to have this building completed, right?
We'll agree upon a time frame in the contract when we finish this up, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So what seems to be reasonable, the best thing to do is for me to check with like the building and some of the equipment and whatnot. We'll see how far anything's out. If it's gonna be problematic, then we would adjust accordingly. Part of the construction of the building, even though it's a smaller building, is a little problematic in the first place, so it takes a little bit longer, but we were mostly shooting for the end of the year, so we'll be somewhere around there, and that will be in the contract.
Answer your question?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Okay?
Farrier.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Sarah. Thank you, Mark. All right. Next item on the agenda is item number 2, business lease agreement between the City of Torrington and Eastern Wyoming College. And I would first call on Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So attached to your agenda is a business lease agreement with EWC to lease the property in the southwest corner of the city park that used to be the chamber, the old chamber building. We refer to it as the museum annex. EWC proposes to use it as a space to exhibit their archaeological program. And we have Dr. Howard here from EWC who is behind all this, and he'd like to come up and speak to you if you guys are willing to listen there.
Appreciate it. Dr. Steve Howard, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. Basically, what we needed was a space to train our students on running a museum and creating exhibits. And we were originally going to do it up at the college, but we realized we didn't have enough room. So we looked around for a space that was relatively easy to get to from the college for students, and that building just seemed to be right in the right spot. And it's got high visibility, and it seemed perfect for the program. So.
And I know you're eager to get this lease signed and this project going, right?
Yeah. We have funding up until July of 2026 through the WIP program, a Wyoming Innovative Partnership. We partner with a bunch of different educational tourism places like parks and Sunrise, the Sunrise Historical and Prehistoric Preservation Society, SHAPS. And so we are setting up an annual fund to keep that process going after the WIP grant runs out. So.
And I know that I know way more about it than these gentlemen do, so when this thing is up and running, who is going to man it? Who's going to be the personnel that's inside the building?
We actually will be using students in the museology course and the archaeology course, and any volunteer students that would like to work as well. We also have potential internships that we'll be using to pay some students to work in there at different times. And we also have a community-based volunteer program that we already have some volunteers for. So.
I just have the impression that the community that is aware of this, this is well received in the community.
Yes.
Now, in our discussions we've had prior to this, you're the professor of archaeology up at EWC.
Right.
And I think you're getting students that are coming in from not only all over the nation, but other parts of the world into that program.
Yeah. Our basic anthropology and archaeology programs are basically to transfer to UW or other schools. But first of all, we have students from all over the state that come, especially in our service area. We actually have high school students in dual credit from Newcastle down to Southeast. So all of these students are new. We just started the program less than a year, well, a little bit over a year ago. Actually, I got here a year and a half ago, so almost. But our field school is actually marketed to other schools because we can offer it at a lesser expense than general four-year colleges. So we have currently 7 students that have applied to the field school for the summer. We have it capped at 15, and they range from University of South Florida to, I can't remember the name of it, but a university in Oregon and Arizona and Missouri.
So you're drawing students into the Torrington area that may not have ever been here or ever come here.
Right.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Dr. Howard
Not a question,
or comments?
just a suggestion that EWC has their sign right on that triangular
We do, yeah.
space there, and since that is a state highway, State Parks does have an historic marker signage, and so with YDOT, you might check with them and see if you can get some signage there.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea, thanks.
And it's a wonderful program, I think, that you've started here, I do. But it's also, I'm intrigued by the potential economic benefit it can be. A lot of traffic passes through Torrington on that highway. And this is something that could pull people in.
Right.
There's parking right there on that south side of City Park for this, and even on, I guess, on the west side along the street. So
Right.
there's plenty of parking, so I'm hopeful that you'll get people just see it and say, wow, that's cool, I'm going to stop in.
Right, and this will be a dual purpose building. We will have it for training the students, and they'll be able to, the public will be able to see their exhibits, but we also will have information on some of those sites that we partner with for educational tourism as well, so.
And with the amount of history from modern Western history and the Oregon Trail and all the trails that came
Yep.
through here, as well as the prehistory that's being
Yep.
discovered, Hell Gap and the Powers 2 site. I would think they're.
This was
would be a
another
lot of
thing that I
interest.
wanted to mention, is that it's not limited to the archaeological stuff. We have history, geology, we have all sorts of stuff around here that are tourist-interested things that are educational. And so we want to showcase all that stuff, so.
Mr. Mayor, Dr. Howard, how many students are in your program?
Right now, we have 59 students enrolled in the general courses, so.
Good addition to EWC.
What's that?
That's a good addition to EWC.
Well, we're trying, yep.
All right, any further comments, Dr. Howard?
Not that I can think of.
Any further questions for Dr. Howard? All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, Lynette, I have a question for you.
Sure.
In the lease agreement, I'm going to ask you how we arrived at the rental of $200 a month, plus the EWC would be responsible for insurance and utilities and taxes also, right?
So the taxes, the property taxes, once, this $200 will cover that cost. Once the city leases out property, it is eligible for property tax. So we will be charged that property tax. I did call and, or I emailed the assessor, Debbie Surratt, and she gave me an estimate of what that might be at that time anyway. And so this should cover that cost and a little bit extra just in case we have to do maintenance on the building. But not a whole lot extra. And then we also made some repairs to the building. We put in new carpet and did some plumbing repairs. And so they're going to pay for those up front out of the grant program. So we can cover those costs up front. And then the $200 a month was negotiated with Dr. Howard.
And I
So-
think you've explained that, but the city is recouping its costs.
Yes, we would be recouping our costs, plus a little extra for maintenance in case, we need to repair a water heater or anything else that might happen to that old building.
And I appreciate that. This wasn't just a number out of the air.
No.
This was calculated
Yep.
and thought through and those sorts of things. And it's a benefit to the city to have that space used, and it's a benefit to the EWC program to be able to use it.
I'm really excited to see something happen in there. We might have to change the effective dates on this. This was negotiated last month, but other than that, the agreement was written by Jim, and we'd be glad to answer any other questions.
And you said that at the end. I know Jim's looked at this contract, and he's satisfied that it's okay.
I was the scrivener thereof, so it should be, it's off our base contract. We probably have dozens of these out there.
Okay. All right. Any further questions for Mrs. Strecker or Mr. Eddington?
Just one question on the insurance. The property insurance, would that still remain with the city?
I believe they cover the liability and whatever's the contents are, but yeah, the building itself will still be on the city.
All right. Any further questions, gentlemen? If there aren't any, item number 2, I would consider a motion to approve the business lease agreement between the City of Torrington and Eastern Wyoming College as set forth in item 2.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the lease agreement between the City of Torrington and Eastern Wyoming College.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Deal in item 2 to approve the lease agreement between the City of Torrington and Eastern Wyoming College. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victorin. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Item number 2, all those in favor of approval of the lease agreement between the City of Torrington and Eastern Wyoming College signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that lease agreement is approved. Thank you, Dr. Howard. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 3, amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Enberg Miller Engineers. Staff recommends approval of amendment number 4 to the current agreement dated July 1, 23 in the not-to-exceed amount of $453,250. And for that, I would first call on Public Works Director Jeff Harkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor stated, this is an amendment number 4 to that 5-year agreement. This is for the design preparation of plans and specifications, DEQ permitting, bidding services, and construction and inspection for the new Baylor facility at the landfill. Enberg Miller Engineers completed a feasibility study in February of 2024 under amendment number 2 to determine the potential location and cost of the new facility. The estimated cost from that study was about $5.5 million, which included the engineering and permitting costs. As you're aware, the city recently revised their sanitation ordinances to include a rate increase that would pay for the new facility. Those rates went into effect as of January 1st, 2025. The schedule, the proposed schedule, is that this March, April, the Enberg Miller would start design and permitting with DEQ. In September of 2026, we should have final plans ready for advertising. November 2026, we would award the construction contract, and then spring in 2027, we should begin construction and hopefully have that completed by December 2027. This amendment would stay in effect until the completion of the project. Funding will be set up under the sanitation budget under 544740. I will be meeting with 2 USDA representatives this Thursday to see what types of loans and grants the USDA may be able to provide us for the funding of this project. With me tonight are 2 representatives from Enberg Miller Engineers. We have Gary Steele and Ryan Vasquez. I'm sure that if you have any questions, they would be more than happy to answer that.
I would invite Mr. Steele and Mr. Vasquez to come up. I don't think you'll get questions if you stay back there. So. Well, I appreciate your taking the drive or making the drive up from Cheyenne, right?
No problem.
All right. Gentlemen, you heard Mr. Harkins' explanation, and most of that information is, if not all of it, is contained in your attachment to your agenda. Do you have any questions for Mr. Steele or Mr. Vasquez?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your names already.
This is Ryan Vasquez, and I'm Gary Steele.
Ryan and Gary. This project, or this building and facility, if you will, in your field of expertise, is this what's called a transfer station?
That's correct.
So would this type of facility qualify for state assistance with the SLIB board in their transfer station program?
It's our understanding that since you already have an existing transfer station, they wouldn't. They have a cease and transfer program, which generally was set up to close landfills and then replace them with transfer stations as the solid waste in Wyoming kind of centralized. But that's not really what's happening here, so it's my understanding that you would not qualify for funds under that program.
Okay. That's what I was curious about. And then the next question would be the, when we had the what did you call it? The feasibility study findings that you provided. We went over theirs, I can't remember quite when. It was the fall of last year, I think. You submitted a type of Baylor model.
Yeah.
And I'm curious of the capacity that you chose.
I don't recall what the capacity was. I think it was around 25 tons a day.
25?
I recall the capacity was picked, the current, I think it's Wheatland, brings one truckload full, and we wanted to have enough. That's, one truck's about 20 tons, 25 tons. So we wanted to have enough capacity that they could unload that without it being completely jamming up the works for, the entire day. So that was kind of, we tried to pick as small as possible without, I guess, trying to size it properly so that it's not bigger than necessary, but also not so slow that you would get backed up in those time periods.
So will the or what you've selected, will it process more or less tons of trash per day than the current existing baler?
I'm not sure what the capacity of the current baler is. I'm going to assume it's going to be greater in capacity than the current baler. Of course, the current baler is kind of a dinosaur, so I'm not sure if it quite has the same specifications on it as a modern one would be.
I guess my question in a roundabout way is, are we going to be purchasing a piece of equipment that will sustain future growth of trash, not only within the city, but potentially from customers outside the city?
I believe so, based on the specs. Sorry, I can't remember what the exact specs were. And also the new transfer stations have a pretty large tipping floor, so that is always an option too, as we discussed basically being able to unload immediately onto the conveyor belt, and then you don't have to handle it again. But if the things get backed up, you could always dump your trash onto the tipping floor and then have one of the loaders push it in as, feed the machine. So I think between that and essentially scheduling, controls, I think they'd be able to manage in the future. I don't know if, Jeff, you have any other thoughts towards that?
No, I think that with the new capacity, the newer machine, we should definitely be able to keep up with what Torrington has. And our growth, as far as we've been experiencing since we started monitoring this, has been relatively stagnant. I mean, we really haven't changed. I mean, when we did the lifetime permit, I think we had something like a 5% increase per year, but we're barely at 1% increase per year in our collections.
That's with the addition of Wheatland?
Yes, with the addition of Wheatland.
The only thing I can imagine is if one of the other communities decides to start bringing trash here, but again, that could just be more of a scheduling than a capacity issue.
And that makes sense to me, the scheduling issue, like you wouldn't want two other municipalities to show up on
And I
the
assume
same
it would end
one.
up happening, but
Okay.
And I think, things are pretty stable in the landfill industry. People are taking their garbage where they're gonna take it now. And so I don't know that you're gonna see a big increase in that manner. The other thing is, you have the ability to say no. If your capacity is met, you have the ability to say, I'm sorry, but we can't do that, so.
Okay.
Since how this feasibility study is a year old, and you came up with $5.5 million for the project, any guesstimate on what it would be when it comes to fruition?
That was the goal of the estimate, was to,
Yeah,
you and I, I've been doing this a long time, and it's hard to predict. what's gonna happen? Who knew what was gonna happen the last, 3 years? Was gonna be so dramatic on the construction industry. And so to try and predict the next 2 years, we would hope that it would stabilize, and it has somewhat stabilized from what we've seen. And so when we do this estimate, we also throw in a pretty hefty contingency to try and help cover some of that. But no, I mean, we can't absolutely predict that construction costs aren't going to continue to go through the roof.
With all the catastrophes in California and everywhere else, the construction's gonna go nothing but up,
Sir,
I feel. But still gotta take care of the garbage, though.
you do.
Just curious if you had an idea what it might be. I'd say it's probably closer to 7 million.
Hope not. We hope, we try and throw everything but the kitchen sink when we do these estimates, because he's gonna be out looking for funding. And usually once you get that funding established, then it's hard to go back and ask for more. And so when Ryan's working on this stuff, when we're working on this stuff, we're trying to make sure we try and cover that. But it's not to say that we do the best we can.
And you have not been blessed in recent years with a stable
No,
market.
unfortunately not. And in our industry, it's really, like I said, with the funding, it's really difficult, especially when you're on that upswing. I've been doing this so long, I've seen it go the other way, where construction actually fell off. And so then you're getting funding and you've got all these extra dollars and people are looking at you like, what were you thinking? And in this case, though, we're seeing, especially on intricate items, your HVAC and stuff like that, big time increases. To move a yard of dirt, hasn't changed that much, but when you start getting into vertical construction, things have changed a lot.
Any further questions for Mr. Vasquez or Mr. Steele? Gentlemen, I do appreciate you coming up from Cheyenne, so
I think we appreciate the opportunity.
thank you.
Hope the wind has died down for you for your return trip here.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, we are on item number 3. Are there any further questions for Mr. Harkins, or I see Ed Hawley back there, or for Mr. Hawley?
Ed, how much trash can the current baler handle in one day?
We average on a busy day about 65 ton a day. And we could probably, we bale Wheatland, which is about 22 tons, and about 40 tons.
So I'm sorry, I have to go back to now that the consultant told us. Was that 25 tons in a day? Because that wouldn't be a capacity increase, in my opinion.
That was per hour is what I was telling you, but I don't know if that's even right. Let me see here, I have the figures in front of me.
If that's per day, that's half what we're doing now.
Ryan.
Ryan is in blue.
I think he's talking about something else.
Hour.
That number, they all start looking the same.
Uh, 24 to 35 tons per hour.
Per hour.
And Ed, you just said you're averaging at the current baler 65 tons per day?
Per day, yes.
Answer your question.
Very much. Yeah.
All right. That makes a big difference, doesn't it? It's late in the evening. All right. Any further questions for Mr. Harkins or Mr. Hawley or Mr. Steele or Mr. Vasquez? Seeing no indication, I would entertain a motion on item number 3.
I'll make the motion to approve amendment number 4 to Ingberg Miller Engineers as presented.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Kelly, item number 3, to approve amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Ingberg Miller Engineers as set forth. Do I have a, and I'll give an amount, in the amount of $453,250. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Councilman Deal. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Item number 3, all those in favor of approval of amendment number 4 to the agreement for professional services with Ingberg Miller Engineers in the not-to-exceed amount of $453,250, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, amendment number 4 and item 3 is approved. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we are now on item number 4. Award bid, 1 new SUV law enforcement vehicle. Staff recommends awarding the bid to Fremont Motors of Lander, Wyoming in the amount of $20,095 with the offered 96 months slash 100,000 mile powertrain warranty for $3,270 for a total contract price of $23,365. And I would call on Chief Johnson. He's able to speak.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A little froggy this evening. The bid opening was done last week for the SUV that was in the budget to add a new patrol vehicle to our fleet. I think we had talked about this earlier, but we essentially tried to craft that bid request to provide the highest value in that we asked for the price of the vehicle separate from any trade. We asked for value of trade, and then we asked to provide options for warranty. We were very fortunate to get a bid from Fremont Motors that is quite advantageous for us. They were offering a Ford, which we had initially expected the Dodge would come in lower price, which it did. But when you look at the trade value, they were very generous for the trade value that they had provided for the 2 existing 2018 civilian Chargers. For perspective, I had, for budgeting purposes, estimated that we'd be able to pull $14,000 out of both of those, given past trade experiences, and we came in at $26,000 in trade for those 2 vehicles. So it made that Ford SUV the most competitive bid. Brian Evans and I kind of met and chatted about warranty, no warranty, do we look at an extension? We felt like the best value on that was to look at a powertrain warranty, which covers us for 8 years and out to 100,000 miles. So that provides the lowest cost warranty we can get that still covers the highest cost expenses for powertrain on the vehicle. Our recommendation is to accept. It puts us in a very favorable position based on our existing funds. We'll be looking at about a roughly $17,000 build cost. Feasibly, we have enough left over in our vehicle budget to cover the purchase of the last Charger from Highway Patrol. So it puts us in a nice position. And Miss Lynette did all the work on the bid, so if she's got anything to add, please.
I mean, so you literally got double you expected.
Pretty close.
Almost, not quite double.
About a $12,000 advantage over what we were planning. Or what we expected, I guess, would be a better way to say that.
And the delivery date is within what time?
180 days.
Nice to see not a 3 beginning that.
Yeah.
Things are stabilizing out there, maybe?
Sure hope so.
All right. Gentlemen, do you have any further questions for Chief Johnson or for Mrs. Strecker?
Is it black and white?
It will be white with black lettering.
When you told me about this deal, I was amazed how this turned out, so in a good way.
It's nice to have a positive surprise.
All right. If there aren't any further questions for Chief Johnson or Mrs. Strecker, item number 4, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to award the bid as outlined in number 4 with the staff recommendation to Fremont Motors of Lander.
All right, I have a motion in item number 4 by Councilman Victron to approve and award the bid for one new SUV law enforcement vehicle from Fremont Motors of Lander, as recommended by staff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Kelly. Is there any further discussion?
Is that delivery price in Torrington?
No, I didn't even think to ask that. We might have to drive it back.
It is.
Is it delivered? Okay.
Well, that's a shame, since my granddaughters live in Lander. I was hoping to drive it back for you.
You could drive one of the Chargers out there, sir.
I'm not sure I want to take a risk on that. Thank you, Chief.
All right, any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. Item number 4, all those in favor of approving and awarding the bid for one new SUV law enforcement vehicle to Fremont Motors of Lander in the amount of $20,095 as recommended by staff, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that bid is awarded and approved in item number 4.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, does that include the $3,270 for the insurance fee?
My understanding would be it does. Do we need to?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify, I moved the staff recommendation and that was included.
Okay.
And I think I stated as recommended by staff.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe we're good.
Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, which is financial report as of December 31, 24. And I would call on Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the chance to present this to you. I apologize for my absence last meeting. Let's start out with the cash balance report as of December 31st, 2024. Cash balance is a little bit down from 6 months ago by $238,146. You're asking about the balance in the Kelly Trust funds. You can find those under restricted funds there at the bottom. If you add the capital improvement account and the general charitable purpose account, you come up with that $938,000 for the museum. If you look at the accounts receivable utility billing, the amounts past due as of 12/31 were $44,062.18. Compared to 6 months ago, it's up quite a bit. I think the main reason is in the winter, we can't turn off electricity because of temperatures, and so some of the balances are a little higher or more past due because of that.
Is that historically true, Lynette?
Yes, I did look at the last December, and it was the same. It went up dramatically in December. The number of discontinuations for non-payment as of 12/31, when I say discontinuation, basically we send out a notice telling them that their bill's overdue, and as soon as the temperatures get above a certain degree, they will be discontinued. And that has to be above 32 degrees for 48 hours. Some, the lows at night are usually below that in the winter here, so it's pretty difficult. But in December, we had 9 accounts on the list, and they totaled $1,551. The amount at collections went up slightly from 6 months ago to $74,000, and the amount turned over to the city attorney was at $4,164. At the bottom of that sheet, you can kind of see the equipment we're still waiting for and what has come in since the beginning of the fiscal year. So we received our new refuse truck in August of this year, and also the new landfill compactor in August of this year. That's over $1 million, which, if you remember, we did have a lease purchase for those through Points West Bank. Still waiting on the aerial truck for electric, a new ambulance, and a 1-ton extended cab pickup. I do know that the aerial truck was in production last month, so it is probably going to be here before November, let's hope. And then the new ambulance was also, the truck part was delivered, and they are building out the ambulance part of it. And then the 1-ton extended cab pickup did not come in January, and it was extended out to April. Again, waiting on the toolbox to go on the back for that. The truck is in, just waiting on the toolbox. The next page, we can look at our cash reserves and where we're at. So I take the balance from the front sheet, the $20,284,170. I take that, and that's our starting balance. And so as of 12/31, we have a certain amount of revenue that we have budgeted, but we haven't earned it yet, or it hasn't come in. So I add that to the balance. So I'm expecting to get this revenue by the end of the year. So in taxes, we have about 2.7 million still coming in for the next 6 months. Grants and loans, we have 7.9 yet to come in. Other income, 253. User fees, 8.4 million. So if you add that to the beginning, or the cash we have on hand, so we have cash and unearned revenue of $39,683. Now we've got to subtract the expenses we have yet occurred that we plan on incurring for the rest of the 6 months. So I've detailed those for you with project amounts and operations and maintenance, debt obligations, equipment. And so we have $26,434,472 that we still have to spend according to the budget. They're appropriated. So that leaves us with a cash reserve balance of $248,000. Now we've got to take off that restricted cash. So that 20 million at the top includes restricted cash. So restricted cash balances are balances that are set aside for specific uses that are not in these expenditures. So we can't use them for our appropriations. So we have to take those out, and those are 3.1 million. So our unappropriated cash reserve as of 12/31 is at $10 million. So just to compare to history, the cash reserve balance last year at this time was 9.6 million, and December 31st of 23, it was 10.5 million. So it's pretty stable. It's where we would expect it to be. So. Let's move on to the budget report. So, I did have an error on here, and I'm sure you guys all noticed it in the heading. 50% of the fiscal year has elapsed, not 100%. So just wanted to point that out before I get started in our budget, because we really look at budgets and a percentage of the year, just to kind of make sure we're on track to where the rest of the year is going to be. So if we look at our general fund first, we look at our general fund revenue. I always highlight the sales tax and optional sales tax. They are at 58.56% for sales tax and optionals right at 57.41%. So for revenue, we'd like the revenue to be at least 50%. So it's above 50%, which is good. We want it to be at 50 or above for revenues. So total taxes, we're at 47.84%, which is really close to the 50%. But I have not went to the county and received our property taxes. I'll be doing that this month. So I'm sure that percentage will be up by the next financial report. Licenses, we're at 68%. Building permits, 162.21%. I believe this is where the new right-of-way fee is going in. So we're seeing an increase in that revenue for the right-of-way fee. I wasn't sure how much it was going to be. It was the first year of that. So I'll have an idea next year what I can budget. Going through the revenues, we have the intergovernmental fund revenue. This is where the Cali Trust is budgeted for revenue, but we shouldn't be getting any more revenue in. But you'll see it in the expense side. We'll take it out of those funds. Total charges and services, we're at 51.79%. Fines and other revenue, we're at 61.59%. Utility revenues, we're at 50.75%. So this is our operating revenue in the general fund, and it comes out to be 49.35%. It's pretty darn close. So I separate out our projects and capital revenue coming in. This is grants, any loans, anything like that. So I have budgeted $332,000, received $131,000. So we're at 39.38%. So the total general fund for revenue is at 48.99%. Right on track. So now let's turn the page and go on to the expenditures for the general fund. So here again, these are expenses, but we really don't want them to go over the 50% threshold. So you'll see here the total for the general fund is at 47.24%. We have one department that's a little bit over, and that's just timing. We had the chip seal project in the streets, which was a big, large maintenance item that kind of skewed those numbers a little bit. So that should even out by the end of the year. Capital construction is at 17.12%. So our grand total expenditures are less than 50, which is great, at 43%. Let's move on to the enterprise funds. So I bring forward the general fund revenue and expenditures, which we already talked about. The water fund revenue is at 56.85%. We had a very hot year. I think watering and irrigation probably played key to this increase in revenue. Power, now we're going to look at expenses for the water fund. These are all operating expenses. They do not include capital construction or equipment. So power and pump is 41 Metering is at 39, distribution's at 44. So the water fund expenditures are at 43.61%. We want them under 50, so that's good. Revenues for the sewer fund were at 52.28%, which is above 50. That's a revenue account. And then the sewer expenditures are at 44.42. The electric fund was at 54.57. I do believe that a lot of that, again, is because of the hot summer we had and the additional air conditioning and kilowatt hours that were used. So we did have above 50% in revenue. As far as the expenditures, we're at 49.93%, so it's right at 50%. Wholesale power may need to be adjusted at the end of the year because, again, of the higher usage from the summer we had. Sanitation revenue is at 52.06, and then collection and disposals at 43.3. Airport was at 49.07, really close to the 50%, and their expenditures were at 53.42%. Golf revenue was at 52.64. Expenditures were right at 50, a little bit over 50. Swimming pools at 61.14. And then the expenditures are at 35.37. We're going to have several, in January, we had several budget adjustments in this fund for the construction. So we can see how that comes out at the end on my next report. The ambulance revenue, they've been very busy, 74.26%, and their expenditures are at 43.64%. Cemetery's been pretty busy as well. Our revenue's at 64% there, and our expenditures are at 38.64. The next page details the summary of all the projects going on in the enterprise funds. We have several big dollar projects, especially in the sewer fund and water fund, and sanitation. You can see those projects with the grant revenue, grant or loan revenue, and then the expenditures for those projects. So the next page kind of tells it all of where the funds come out, their net revenue. And this is purely on a cash basis. There's no depreciation or transfers. This is basically what we brought in this year minus what we expended this year. There's no cash carryover. There's no, this is the cash in and cash out. So if you look at this, it's pretty typical of what it was the last 2 years. The net revenue at the bottom is $616,000. Last year it was $517,000, and the year before it was $746,000. So just to note, the sewer fund, it looks a little large there, and that is mainly because of how the grant money came in. The expenditure was expended in last fiscal year, but the grant money came in fiscal year 25. So like I said, this is on a cash basis, so the accruals would not show up here. So other than that, you can see that the ambulance is very busy. They're positive right now. We'll see how that ends up. We do have an ambulance coming in, so I'll see how that ends up at the end of the year. So that is my financial report. I'd be glad to answer any questions for you guys. I know it's kind of boring.
Well, I appreciate your explanation. I appreciate the report itself.
Thank you. It kind of shows you where we're at.
It shows everybody where we're at, and with a little bit of effort, it's readable, with some effort, and your explanation was good, Lynette, so I do appreciate that.
I do expect that cash carryover will be lower this year in the budget than it will be next, for fiscal year '26 than it was in previous years. We have a lot of cash going out, so.
On the one page under general fund budget, it lists the Wyoming Gaming Commission. Does that take into account the thing out on the hill?
No, we don't get any revenue from that. So that would be from the, what do you call them? Skill machines they have in the bars? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
And then the lottery would be the lottery that are sold in the convenience store, the lottery tickets. They're two separate pots.
In that same category, the sales tax includes internet sales too, right?
It does. It continues to be strong. I hope it stays that way. It's one thing hopefully we can count on.
Yeah.
Might not be able to count on property tax.
The mineral royalties are, I assume, delayed through the state,
Yes.
finally passing those along.
They, it'll show up by the end of the year as a full, but yeah, it's slow coming in the first part of the year.
You need a motion to approve the financial report, Mr. Mayor.
It's not a motion to approve. I learned this morning. It's a motion to accept.
Okay.
So if no one has any further questions, I would entertain a motion to accept the financial report in item number 5.
Well, then, Mr. Mayor, I would make the motion to accept the financial report.
All right, thank you. I have a motion from Councilman Deal in item number 5 to accept the financial report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victorin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the financial report set forth in item 5 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the financial report is accepted. Thank you, Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 6, approval of the bills from February 19th, 25 to March 4th, 25. And call on Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So attached to your agenda were a list of bills for your consideration tonight. And I also handed out a second set of bills for your consideration as well. Be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, if nobody has any more further questions, I would make a motion to accept the bill as presented.
All right, item number 6, I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the bills as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Warren. Any further discussion? Hearing none, item number 6, all those in favor of approval of the bills as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the bills in item 6 are approved. Item number 7, public comment. Fire chief still back there? Chief Correa. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's slowed down quite a bit for us. We had a total of 6 calls, I believe, since the last meeting. However, the two of the 6 were fairly large fires. Thankfully for us, it was just a mutual aid call, one to Platte County and then one to Mitchell, Nebraska. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's slowed down. It seems like grass season is starting a little bit early for us, and hopefully they won't be as bad as last year with
And
the
those
size.
2 mutual aid, those were both grass fires, right?
Yes, correct. They were both grass fires.
Did you have any guys out on wildland fires this year?
I went out on the Labonte fire, and then we had several people out on the Pleasant Valley fire.
So do we have that situation? It was not a wet year last year. It was dry, right? So we don't have the undergrowth that we did last summer, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's still some out there that just unburnt for years that will eventually, it's gonna light off, and
You
we
can
worry
see 'em
about
blowing
that.
down the road.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, we hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, definitely.
Chief, how many volunteers and equipment went to Wheatland?
Actually, I guess we were mutual aided to that one, but I guess we didn't send anybody for our guys. We kind of decided as a department and kind of as the county. I think Veteran, Lingle, Yoder, I believe those 3 sent quite a few trucks that way. So as to not leave the county unprotected. Our guys did stay back for suppression and backfill on those departments.
That is an indication that you have good communication between Torrington Fire Department and the ones you named, Veteran and Yoder.
Yeah, it wasn't always that way, but yeah, in the last few years we've really picked up quite a bit of good communication, and we cooperate with each other and definitely stand united.
I appreciate hearing that, I do. All right, any additional questions for the fire chief? All right, chief, thank you. Appreciate your report.
Thank you.
All right, we are in public comment time. Are there any members of the public out there who want to make a public comment? Don't see anybody. Council, any comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to remind folks that the Torrington Trailblazer wrestling team did finish 3rd at state, and we had 2 state champions, so congratulations to them.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. More good news. All right, anything else? All right, we will close public comment, and we have an item number 8. I would entertain a motion to leave regular session and go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I would move, Mr. Mayor, I would move to recess into executive session for discussion of potential litigation.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Victorin to recess and leave regular session and go into executive session, as indicated in item 8. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Deal. All right, any discussion? All those in favor of recessing and moving from regular session into executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, we will move into executive session.